Hi, HRN listeners. We're celebrating our 15th anniversary, and we have a really fun campaign and an ask for you. This 15th anniversary tour is aiming to bring you closer to unique food and music experiences in some of the most exciting cities in America. All the while, we're raising funds to support our work empowering the next generation of food systems storytellers through our fellowship programs. Here's how it works. Donate to HRN and be entered into a raffle in the city of your choice to win a dinner for two at a noteworthy restaurant and tickets for two to a concert at a prominent local venue. We have incredible partners in New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Nashville, Las Vegas, Charleston, Asheville, and Ardmore, Pennsylvania, who have donated a meal for two and two tickets to a concert of the winner's choice. And all donations help fund our fellowship programs, where we're helping to build essential workforce readiness skills and food system storytelling skills. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15. Thank you.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org. This episode is brought to you by Diageo Bar Academy. Learn more at diageobaracademy.com. That's DIAGEO baracademy.com. Hey, welcome to Beer Sessions Radio on Heritage Radio Network. I'm Jimmy Carboni, I'm the host, and it's Tuesday, November 1st, 2022. We're doing a special episode talking with the Diageo Bar Academy. This is one of their special shows that we're doing on Heritage Radio Network. And I'm lucky to have a recent champion of a cocktail competition here. Jessi, you're going to introduce yourself, and we have a lot to talk about today. So thanks for joining me.
Hi, Jimmy. Thanks so much for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here. My name is Jessi Pollak, and I am a bartender in Minneapolis, Minnesota, but I'm presently more widely known as the USBG Presents World Class, sponsored by Diageo, Bartender of the Year for the United States.
Yeah, see, that's amazing. I mean, I just know what it takes to compete on any level. But let's talk about your backstory, and then in particular, like the arc of this competition. And then, of course, we'll talk about some of your award-winning cocktails.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been bartending since about 2015, and I was actually previously in academia, and it just wasn't quite fitting for me. I took a bartending job really just for fun and absolutely loved it. Right away, I got excited about creating cocktails and creating connections with guests and hospitality. And it's kind of just been go, go, go ever since then. This year, competing in world class, it was the first time I've ever entered world class. It's a massive bartending competition that is global. It's known around the world by industry professionals. And I did the thing this year and ended up winning, which was pretty exciting.
Wow. So what was the first competition? I mean, you obviously started somewhere.
Before world class, I have done a lot of competitions, and I chose to do competitions as a way to kind of better myself, sort of hone my craft, learn, meet people, and also to get travel opportunities. And so done a lot of them. Different ones have stuck out to me. I always really love Speed Rack. Speed Rack is a charitable competition, so it raises money for breast cancer research and awareness, and it highlights women bartenders, which is something, of course, I'm excited to be part of.
No, that's really great. When I was starting out, people didn't talk as much about sustainability, grain to glass, but it's really front and center in so many things that we're talking about. And I know we're going to dive into that today as well as part of the Diageo Bar Academy. What does sustainability mean to you as a bartender? And, there's so many things like water, climate, and diversity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited that so many people are talking about this at this point, because I feel the same way as you. When I started bartending, which wasn't that long ago, but it still just wasn't really it wasn't part of the zeitgeist. It wasn't on people's minds as much. I remember going to Tales of the Cocktail and seeing a trash tiki pop up where they took waste ingredients and made them into new cocktail ingredients. And I was just blown away. And right away, I thought, like, I want to incorporate that into my programs and what I do. And so I really think sustainability when it comes to the bar world is about how can we create beautiful, delicious drinks that are good for the world or certainly not bad for it. So thinking about the carbon footprint, and then again, like food waste and water waste are both huge in restaurants and bars. And of course, in production of spirits and all the products that we put into cocktails. And so we need to think about how we can reduce all of that.
Yeah, it's important. I mean, do you think that things just need to be more transparent, or do we need to have some kind of meters on things? Like, for example, I know in some breweries they have to monitor how much water they use because there's a lot of cleaning involved, and that's water too.
Exactly. The first thing that really stuck out to me when I just started bartending was at the end of every night, how much water we would waste in a bar just burning ice, like things like that, that really do add up. So I think that, things being transparent is important, but also just like absolutely setting goals for ourselves is really crucial. Like I said, I'm here with Diageo Bar Academy, and Diageo specifically is a large company that owns a lot of brands, and they have like a plan set in place and a list of goals to reach by 2030 to reduce waste, to create a more sustainable and kind of like inclusive and just better for the world policies throughout the company and throughout all of the companies that belong to them as well.
So that's the Society 2030.
That's right. Yeah. And so Society 2030 is essentially a 10-year plan, because it's already been out for a little while, to promote positive drinking, to champion inclusion within the industry, and then to pioneer grain to glass sustainability throughout all the brands and all of the endeavors that Diageo does.
Wow. When you say it, Jessi, it makes a lot of sense. So it's like what the world should be like in 2030, and goals that we could achieve, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And, with goals comes accountability too. It's so easy, I think, especially for large companies to just kind of put out these super vague statements about like, we're committed to sustainability. And you're like, well, how? Like, show me, I want receipts. And I think we're really seeing that even like generationally now, where like consumers they're not okay with just those vague promises anymore. They want to see receipts. They want to see what you're actually doing. And so by creating these goals, we're saying like, this is exactly what we're going to do over the next 10 years.
Oh yeah. Hey, one of the points is preserving water for life. And I remember there was in New York City in Union Square Green Market, there's a really well-known native speaker who would often talk to people and say, water is life, life is water, life is water, water is life. And, it's the kind of thing that unless you don't have water, you don't think about it, So it's like, it says preserve water for life is one of the points of the Diageo program. I mean, when you think about beer and you think about, besides bars, but making beer, it's not just the amount of water, it's that water is such an important part of beer, and the same in spirits, It's something that we take for granted. If we didn't have good water, we couldn't have those spirits and the beer. How do you think about it? Like, you're using water all the time. It's a deep conversation. All I think about is reducing ratios, but I think that the clean water is what's important too.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good point that like you don't think about it unless you have a need for it, right? I personally have never lived in, like a real like drought concern area. So even just in my personal life, I've never had to like think about that much about like worry about how much water I'm using in my house or like what time of day I'm using it, whatever. And that's just sort of environmental of where I've always lived. But as far as preserving water, I mean, for large companies, we've got these bigger initiatives that make sense, right? Which are like either reducing or also thinking about how to reuse water. So, for example, yeah, when you're talking about producing beer or spirits, you have a lot of water that you're using for cleaning. You're also having to cool a lot of things. So, like, how can those be, systems that are actually combining that? So you're using water for cooling that will then be used for cleaning, or the other way around, something so that you're basically like reusing as much as you can. On a much smaller, like more local level, in my bar, I really, again, think about ice and think about how to reduce the amount of ice that's just going to end up going down the drain when I'm making cocktails.
Yeah. So is that there's another point. It's like sustainability by design. Does that does that count? You know, you're working on your bar and you're trying to not waste ice, or is it a deeper meaning than that?
I mean, I think when Diageo is talking about sustainability by design, they are really thinking about those ways in which spirits are produced. And specifically, the goal there is to use 30% less water for each drink by 2030 than what it would use to make that today. And obviously, that's not we're not talking about a highball that's 30% smaller. We're talking about that 30% less water has gone into the production of the whiskey that goes into that highball. And then also specifically, using, like, again, with design, think about using packaging that comes from recycled materials and then also is completely recyclable is going to absolutely reduce water waste because you're not talking about that much production of new products.
Yeah, so it's the whole process. It's the cleaning. It's everything. Cooling, can be water. Um, it's really interesting. Well, let's go back to your cocktails. I mean, I'm still fascinated. I mean, you won this world class competition, sponsored by Diageo, and I'm in awe of you. I mean, you make one mistake. I mean, what? Just walk me through like the finals. How about that? And I want to talk about
Yeah.
a couple of your cocktails, like the one that you're making with Kettle One, or the one with tequila Don Julio. Just be great to go through those as well.
Yeah, about it. I'm still surprised. I still wake up every morning and assume like I'm going to wake up from the dream. I don't know. um, but essentially, world class is meant to be a bartending competition. There are a lot of cocktail competitions out there where it's really about making one really great drink and then maybe talking about the ingredients within it or promoting a brand. World Class wanted to be something bigger than that. So it is meant to really test every part of what it means to be a great bartender. So that includes your ability to make delicious and thoughtful ingredients that go into a drink, then make a delicious, balanced, thoughtful drink. Do it quickly, do it cleanly, and do it with great hospitality and tell a good story about that drink. So, really, kind of all of those things. Um, the competition starts out with thousands of people in anonymous, like online only applications where they're really just writing out a cocktail recipe and telling you about it. It goes through several levels of judging until we get to the live part of the competition, which of course is my favorite. The finals this year were in Nashville, Tennessee. They were very fun. It was the
Amazing.
15, yeah, it was 15 of the best bartenders from around the country. And like you said, it was there was not a lot of room for mistakes because they were pros. And that was actually 2 days of challenges, and again, different challenges. Some that'll be more about like, how do you tell a story and like really connect with your guests? And then some that are about just like, how can you just make great cocktails, but really, really fast and really cleanly.
What's a good story to connect with your guests? I mean, do you have a list of jokes that you practice every night? Some people do.
Oh, I'm guilty of telling the same jokes over and over. At least, so I work in Minneapolis, Minnesota, so it's really easy because you can always talk about the weather. It's always doing something you don't like. So that's a go-to.
So wow. So and you won the competition. How important were the actual recipes that you did in this? I mean, the one's called the Flip. It's Kettle One, Amontillado Sherry. That one sounds like right up my alley. And then you have the Jungle Bird, which is with tequila Don Julio.
Yeah, the cocktails are really important. I mean, it doesn't matter if maybe you can tell a real good story and be super charming and provide great hospitality, but if like what's in the glass isn't tasty, you're just not going to get far. That Flip is a fun example of that. I really enjoyed that cocktail. So that was for a challenge presented by Kettle One Vodka. And the idea was to make it about your hometown somehow. So take something that is an ingredient that you connect with your hometown and manipulate it to put it in a cocktail. So for that, I'm in Minnesota, like I said, and what I think of with Minnesota is apples. Minnesotans are obsessed with apples. The University of Minnesota actually created a lot of the world's most like well-known and recognizable apple varietals. We've got a lot of like weird apple pride here.
Well, yeah. Oh, that's where the Honeycrisp are from, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I
that's
was
one
going to
of my
ask,
favorite
did you
eating
know?
apples.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've read that story.
Yeah. Never get in a fight with a Minnesotan over apples. They take it very seriously.
And then Minneapolis is a cool story. It's I know a
Yeah.
lot of writers that have moved there, and it seems like a very cool, culturally diverse city. Must be a great place to work.
Yeah, but don't tell anyone. We're
Oh yeah,
trying to keep it a secret. Yeah. We're trying to keep small town vibes, so keep that one. Edit that part out. Just kidding.
oh yeah, a little Mary Tyler Moore, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah,
Exactly. So for that cocktail, what I did is to infuse apples into it. I actually used a local apple cider, like an alcoholic cider that's made essentially like a pet nat cider. And one of the apple varietals in there was Honeycrisp. I used that, and then a whole egg, which is why it's called a flip. A flip is like a classic cocktail that has a whole egg in it, so like a really like rich, creamy texture to it.
oh
That
yeah.
apple cider, Kettle One vodka, Amontillado sherry, and a cinnamon syrup. Shook that all up together, so you got something that was like a little fizzy, a little tart, but really like creamy and complex as well.
Great. And then what glass did you put it in?
I actually put that in a really cute little teacup. And I did that because one, I used again, like I'm, thinking about sustainability, and I know Kettle One is thinking about sustainability. So I found some really good little thrifted teacups. I use that for the cocktail. And I'm a big fan of those kind of visual tricks when it comes to cocktails, maybe like giving people something that isn't exactly what they expected. So this one, it had a really foamy texture to it, and it really looked more like a cappuccino in a glass. And so you'd be very surprised when you went in to take a sip that you're definitely not getting a cappuccino.
Wow, that sounds really cool. Well, I also love like English, the English punches that are served in teacups too. So there's a lot of good. That's a great association drinking out of teacups. It's also like kind of moderate too, isn't it? It's not like a large portion.
Exactly. It's kind of a smaller size, totally.
Yeah, lends itself to sipping, and so that's pretty good. And then you have the Jungle Bird Tequila Don Julio. I think, and these, I think you referenced some of these on your web on your Instagram. What's your Instagram, Jessi? Because I looked at it. You have some really cool stuff on there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it is Jessi Pollak. That's it. It's my name. So JESSIPOLLAK. That's me.
All right.
You could also go to World Class US is another option too for where you'll get all the information on the world class competition if it's something
Oh, wow.
if your listeners are interested in maybe applying for. It's coming up soon. The deadline is, let's see, oh my gosh, it's in 2 weeks. It's November 15th, so coming up really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, we're primarily a beer show, but being on Heritage Radio Network, we try as much as we can to connect to ingredients and sourcing, and we do cover direct from farm and grains and malt, and we've done quite a few distilling shows over the year as well. But cocktails is usually not in our turf, but we like it. And I've seen a lot
Fun,
more,
all right.
a lot more places that 10, 12 years ago were diehard beer bars are now diehard beer bars with good cocktails. So that's why I love to pick your brain, because I'm always like, we need some new cocktails. So Jungle Bird.
I've been excited to see my local brewery that's right down the street from my house is like now has like beer slushies and beer lemonades and kind of like these little things where you can see that, yeah, they're kind of like recognizing that people are excited about cocktails right now, and you can kind of like dive in with beer and offer a little more of a wider range of things. I think it's cool to see.
Yeah. When you talk about like, promoting, just, positive drinking culture and stuff, mixologist really has a role in that. I mean, you can definitely add ingredients like you added a local cider, or you can add tea or other things that don't make it too strong of a drink.
Yeah, absolutely. I really love making non-alcoholic cocktails. That's one of my absolute favorite things because I think they still really surprise people when they get something that doesn't have any alcohol in it, but is not just a big glass of juice. It's something that is delicious and well balanced and beautiful. They're really grateful and excited about that.
Okay, so what's a favorite non-alcoholic cocktail that you make?
Oh yeah. So, you mentioned the Jungle Bird, and the Jungle Bird was that does have alcohol in it, but it was part of the speed round. So the speed round was creating 8 drinks in 10 minutes during the national finals for world class. And so it wasn't just, beer and shot kind of drinks. It was like 8 well executed cocktails in 10 minutes. So it is not a lot of time. That Jungle Bird was using tequila Don Julio and a red bell pepper syrup and pineapple juice, lime juice, a little bit of salt. But the non-alcoholic cocktail that I had in that same round, I thought was the best drink of the round. And it was using Seedlip Garden. So Seedlip is a non-alcoholic distilled spirit. And Seedlip Garden is just like you crack it open and it's like you have cracked open a fresh snap pea from your garden. That's really like the aroma that hits you right away. So really like beautiful and like vegetal and bright and green. And then I used, in the place of where you would normally use like lemon or lime juice, some kind of acid, I actually used tomatillo juice as the source of acid. And then just a
Wow.
little bit of sugar and an elderflower tonic to make that like a beautiful, super springy, non-alcoholic cocktail.
Wow, that's really great. So doing eight cocktails in 10 minutes. I mean, that's like working a busy shift at a bar, isn't it?
Very much so. And, I've been more grateful for my bar since then because usually when you're working in a busy bar like that, or at least in my case, when I'm working in a very busy service, well, it's usually you can just kind of put your head down and think about what you're doing and focus on it. But as part of the competition, it was expected that you're also talking to the judges about the drinks that you're making. So you kind of have to, like separate your brain from your hands pretty much and make it so that your hands can be doing one thing while you're talking about something else.
Wow, you're amazing. I mean, we see some competitive shows on TV, and it seems like it's easy to drop something or to just freeze up. Um, Definitely making the cocktail and talking sounds like a real challenge.
It took a lot of practice. I definitely practiced at it. I tried to really train myself ahead of time so that I had so much kind of muscle memory that even if I went like completely brain dead from nerves, my hands would just do what they were supposed to do. And I didn't actually have to think about that part too much. So, fortune favors the well prepared.
Oh, that's a good line. Fortune favors the well prepared. Hey, but, back to your just ingredients, especially for that non-alcoholic cocktail. It sounds like you're, kind of aware of sourcing from, farm ingredients and vegetables and things. You want to talk about one or two of those, syrups or base ingredients that you make as part of your bar setup?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I bet you
So
make some really cool stuff.
yeah, I actually, I really enjoy, or a thing that I think about a lot when I'm thinking about ingredient creation is, and I'm sure you'll be so familiar with this if you're like tasting beer, when you smell or taste a beer and you think like, okay, what are the notes in here? What am I getting? It's not enough to say apple, right? It's like, is it a fresh, like bright Granny Smith apple, or is it like a cooked apple in an apple pie, right? Like you think
Oh yeah.
about kind of the state of the fruit. So essentially, I like to think about that when I'm creating ingredients, and I think about in a cocktail specifically, what state do I want that ingredient to be in? So I really like something known as oleosaccharides, and oleosaccharides are one of the oldest cocktail ingredients that there is. It is essentially a very flavorful, like citrus or fruit syrup. So essentially, if you were, let's say you were, worked for the Navy, the English Navy, and, I had a bottle of rum that I was willing to share with you, and you didn't have any rum, but you had some lemons, and our friend Armin over here also had some sugar. We're going to put that sugar and lemons together. We're going to put all the peels together with the sugar and actually have the sugar extract out all of the oils from the peels, and we'll get a syrup that then we can mix with your rum and we can have a little party. So I think about that kind of thing when I'm making cocktail ingredients. So with oleosaccharides, I like to do things like strawberry oleosaccharum, where I take fresh strawberries and sugar, compress them together and leave it over time with no cooking at all until I get a really flavorful strawberry syrup that has some acid to it, but it only has fresh strawberry flavor, like none of that like cooked like jam flavor to it.
Yeah. Wow. What about anything else? Rhubarb? Any other Minnesota ingredients that you like?
Ooh, good question. We definitely do use a lot of rhubarb here during the summer. I also, as part of my sort of personal sustainability initiatives in my bar, I try to use as little, I try to really think about seasonality. So using ingredients both that are like delicious during the summer and people are thinking about them, but also what actually makes sense. And so, for example, we try to use very little citrus during the summer in my bar because even though you might want like a big, tall, refreshing cocktail, um, it might not, it doesn't make sense to use citrus because it's not exactly in season, right? It's taking more of a carbon footprint bump to get that citrus to us. There's more travel, there's more production involved versus during the winter when it's a little easier to grow citrus or to get citrus in Minnesota. So I think about things like acids. Like I said, that non-alcoholic cocktail where like great, I used tomatillo juice instead of lemon juice to get the acid. Or you can even use powdered acids like malic or citric acid to make an acid solution and use that in a drink, and it actually has a smaller carbon footprint than our fresh lemon or lime juice do during the summer.
Yeah, no, the tomatillo juice sounds great. It sounds like making a gazpacho, a seasonal gazpacho.
Totally.
Right. Well, also, like old school shrubs. What's a shrub? Like, is it? I know what a shrub is, but I want to kind of hear you tell me, and
Yeah.
if you make any with your drinks.
Yeah, we do. I use shrubs pretty often at my bar. So shrubs are essentially the easiest thing to call them is drinking vinegars, right? So they were often, I think of them as like an old-timey farmer beverage. And essentially, if you added some, okay, let's say you were working on a real hot day in a field. If you then just go and drink a bunch of water, there's a chance it'll make you sick because you've gotten really dehydrated and hot all day working hard. But if you added some vinegar to that, and specifically like some juice, some sugar, some things that are going to give you a little more hydration, it'll actually make you less likely to get sick. So they started out that way, but they're really delicious. Essentially, you take some kind of vinegar, some kind of fruit, and some kind of sugar and mix them all together. So I recommend when people make shrubs that they think about the vinegar. You don't necessarily want to use like just distilled white vinegar. I would say, save that for cleaning your kitchen because it's really, really vinegary, right? It's like, it's really going to bite you. So think about something that's a little bit softer on the vinegar side, like maybe a champagne vinegar. And then you can mix that with fruits. I like to use in my bar, I have a shrub on the menu right now that has raspberries in it. It actually has a mix of vinegars. Balsamic is one of them. So like raspberry, balsamic, and then mix it with sugar. And you just let it sit. You can cook it, but generally you're just going to actually combine everything and let it sit and turn into a shrub on its own until everything is mixed together. And then you have something that you can use as an ingredient in either an alcoholic or non-alcoholic cocktail. And it's both sweet and fruity and a little acidic too.
Oh, that sounds really good. I've also had kind of like not just straight pickle juice, but I've had shrubs that kind of taste like beet pickle juice shrub. Do you think there's a relation between people having some kind of pickle juice in a drink? Is that like a riff on a shrub?
Oh yeah. No, I think they're super similar. I always, I mean, personally, I could drink the juice straight out of the pickle jar very happily. But I'm very aware that that's not everyone. And so I think when you're putting shrubs on menus or using them in your bar or even at a party, it's definitely smart to think about using things that aren't like really, really vinegary because it definitely turns a lot of people off.
Yeah. So it seems like in you're very conscious of your cocktail design and having some balance and freshness in there, and you're trying to use local ingredients, right? It sounds really good and the way to go. Hey, we're gonna take a short break. We'll be back in a few minutes on Beer Sessions Radio. All right. Oh, hey, we were just talking with Jessi Pollak. She's the winner of the world-class competition for Diageo Bar Academy. And to know more about it, Diageo Bar Academy equips bartenders, servers, managers, and hospitality professionals with the insights, stories, and tools to be better. Wow. Consistently raising the bar on industry standards. I like this. Diageo Bar Academy reaches a diverse audience with backgrounds and skill levels of all ranges, providing them with skills, knowledge, and techniques they need to improve their personal and professional lives. We had a great conversation, and we're still talking with Jessi Pollak just about her journey through this program. Well, here's your chance to enter. Want to try your hand at the biggest bartending competition in the world? The November 15th application deadline is quickly approaching for the 2023 season of USBG Presents World Class, sponsored by Diageo. World Class US is more than a competition. It offers a great opportunity for cocktail enthusiasts of all skill levels and backgrounds to test themselves. Join a community of industry professionals from around the world and ultimately become a stronger bartender. These results just in, the global finals for this year just wrapped in Sydney, Australia. And next year's finals will be happening in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Wow. DiageoBarAcademy.com hosts best-in-class educational content from world-class studios and application details. This is the biggest competition in the industry, and applications are open to all hospitality professionals age 21 plus. So check out www.diageobaracademy.com. It has all the resources you need to prepare yourself to be a world-class bartender. Whether you are a seasoned bartender or just getting started in your career, visit diageobaracademy.com and click on the World Class tab for more information. You can be a winner too. And to wrap it up, visit diageobaracademy.com to build your skills. Take a world-class studio, masterclass, or e-learning and take charge of your development in the bar industry today. Again, that's DIAGEO baracademy.com. Must be 21 plus. Please drink responsibly. Hey, welcome back to Beer Sessions Radio on Heritage Radio Network. Support us and become a member at heritageradionetwork.org. So we're talking with our world-class champion, Jessi Pollak, and about the Diageo Bar Academy. So Jessi, it's really great talking to you, and we've covered a lot of things: sustainability, shrubs, using local ingredients, and some of the cocktails that you won the competition with. I think for our listeners, I think we'd like, how can they learn to be like you? I mean, you just won a major competition. You know, what are the resources available? I'm a bartender or a bar manager in a good bar or restaurant, but I really want to up my game. You know, sometimes when you're working, you're just working so much that you can't step out of that and learn more.
Yeah. Well, it's such an exciting time right now. I feel like, a few years ago there weren't as many great resources for bartenders as there are today, and especially since it sounds like a lot of your listeners are interested in beer mostly. Cocktails can be a little intimidating, right? So the resource I send everyone to is diageobaracademy.com. And essentially, Diageo Bar Academy is a massive wealth of free online resources. It's something that I very much wish I had known about when I began bartending, because I did it a little bit the hard way instead. But essentially, you're going to find on there information about spirit categories, about how to create great cocktails, how to rank great menus, and then also more and more of this information that we've been talking about, which is about sustainability and what sustainability initiatives are, and even how you can work toward a lower waste initiative in your own bar.
That's great.
The other option that I'll mention too is the world-class studios. I just taught a world-class studio in Dallas, Texas last week, but we have studios that are like in-person resources for bartenders as well on a variety of topics. The one I taught was on no and low proof cocktails, but we're always coming out with new exciting topics too.
Yeah, we were just talking about your non-alcoholic cocktail. What are a couple low proof cocktails? Because I feel like, people want to have like Kettle One, a splash of that in soda water. But I want something a little more thoughtful.
Exactly. Yeah. You want something a little more interesting, but also, maybe you want to have several of them, and, foolproof cocktails can be a little much. That's something that World Class is really focused on this year in particular for the World Class competition, which is open right now. Applications are open until November 15th. And the first challenge is it's called Ready, Set, Spritz. And it's making a spritz, which we think of as something that is like fizzy and low proof and meant to be enjoyed in kind of a carefree way, enjoyed usually before a meal or, something if you want to go a little lower ABV. So I'm going to be honest, I'm very excited that people are excited about these things right now. In my opinion, when you're making a great spritz, you need three things. You need something bubbly, you need something bitter, and you need something either fresh or fruity. So, like spritzes are a great example of that, of just like, like think of like the Aperol spritz. Everyone knows it. You've got like that bitter, that fruity and fresh, and also something a little zippy with your mix of soda water and sparkling wine.
Oh yeah. And so you could also do it with a sparkling cider as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, you can even, make these things non-alcoholic if you want. You can use something like a no-proof spirit or, a non-alcoholic spirit. As long as you're getting kind of that bitter quality in there. I actually have a cocktail on my menu right now that is a non-alcoholic tonic, essentially. So it's taking, again, we're in fall here in Minnesota. So it is pear and apple and ginger and cinnamon, mixed with a little bit of gentian for some bitterness, and made into just like a light, refreshing, but still kind of autumnal non-alcoholic cocktail.
Wow. And then what about flavor profiles for you? Like mouthfeel, what do? We look at the drink, we smell it, but the mouthfeel is important.
Yeah.
Do you want to create balance? You have different moods. You want different types of balance in your drink.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, that's such a good point, but it's important to think about that, you start drinking a drink the moment you walk into a bar is the way I like to think about it, right? So, right, like if you walk in and like the music is weird or the crowd is real weird or like the lights are up way too high, like you instantly aren't having the right experience. So it's important when you're doing these things to think about that, like person's drinking a drink the second they walk in the door, and how do you create a great experience for them in that way. So yeah, things that are beautiful and smell good, and mouthfeel is a huge component, especially when making non-alcoholic cocktails. That's the thing, is alcoholic spirits do really give you a like textural component that can be hard to replicate. Like if you had water that tasted like whiskey, and you tried to make a Manhattan with it, it wouldn't be the same, right? Because water and whiskey have a totally different texture in your mouth. So it's something that you often have to think about when making either no or low proof cocktails, is like, how do you get that texture? Often it can be through a little bit more sugar, but can also be done in a little bit more of a creative way, so I'd say.
Well, I like that you think about other ingredients like ginseng and different bittering ingredients. I'll tell you, talk about the atmosphere of a bar. I like your flip with that's served in a teacup because it's the kind of thing. If I walked in and I saw someone drinking that drink out of a teacup, I definitely want to know what it is. And glassware is really important too. What if you're setting up? Let's say you're going to go set up a master class. Do you have anything about glassware or bar management?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think about these things a lot because my favorite thing is really to think about menus in a holistic way. A menu should never be just a collection of separate cocktails. It needs to work together cohesively, right? It needs, think of it almost like a playlist or an album, there's a reason you don't like go to your favorite album by a musician and put it on random, right? You want to hear it in the order they wanted you to hear it in. And so I think about cocktails need to all fit together. And so glassware is definitely part of that, of having a variety of options for people, and knowing that like people take glassware really seriously. I have a wonderful bar regular who comes into my bar very often, and we have a daily cocktail. So it's something that's done differently every day. And her first question right away is always, what kind of glass does it come in? Because she wants something that's like beautiful and she likes to hold in her hand, and that might make or break it for her right away. So it's something that's on people's minds.
That's gets me thinking. I want to try out your cocktail of the day. I love it.
You got to come to Minneapolis.
I got to. And talking about learning. I remember when I first started out in the business, I was really passionate, and I took a sommelier class, and I had wine books and cookbooks, and every night after work, I'd stay up and read to learn more. And What kind of like e-learning do you guys have? Because now I feel like I read everything online or everything's on my phone. Is there like an e-learning component for this Diageo Bar Academy?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm still looking at cookbooks and cocktail recipe books very often. Spent too much money on those over the years. But yeah, as part of DiageoBarAcademy.com, there are so many resources there for learning, including even like there are like quizzes to help you get better. But mostly it's going to be just information provided. And again, free information to help you in a variety of ways. I like to use the search function on Diageo Bar Academy because it just helps me navigate to exactly what I want right away. And so, even like going in and typing in the word sustainability is going to bring up a lot of different resources for you on, how to incorporate sustainability into your life or your bar program.
Yeah. Hey, when I think about going online to look up recipes or how to make a cocktail, I kind of assume there's going to be a video. Do you guys have videos as well?
Yeah, there are videos on there as well. There are even some tools that can be very practical for you, like the ABV calculator. That, when we're talking about making a low alcohol cocktail, is perfect. There's an ABV calculator that basically you just, it's going to do the math for you. So if I like look at my bottle of Kettle One vodka and I see it has 40% alcohol, and I know I'm going to put, 1.25 ounces in the drink, but I also want half an ounce of vermouth, and that's at 14% alcohol. I can plug these things in. I can say it's going to have 3 ounces of soda, whatever it is. I can plug all that information in, and it's going to give me the exact ABV of the cocktail, and that's going to help me determine a lot of things. Determine if it's too high, if it's too low. If I'm presenting it as like a standard cocktail, am I going to have guests that are disappointed? Or is it, too high to be a low ABV cocktail? Or even, how am I going to do my pricing? It might sort of influence a lot of those things.
Yeah.
So that ABV calculator is it's one of my tabs that's always open.
So what do you target for ABV? I mean, we know with beer, it's like, you want your lager 4%, maybe a red wine's 12, 13%. Yeah, how do you do that? I mean, 40% for alcohol. I don't even understand how it works.
Yeah. So essentially, I like to think of it as, one thing that's really important to think about is that if you're saying that something is a non-alcoholic cocktail, it really needs to be at 0% alcohol. You don't want to fudge that at all because we never know the reasons people are choosing not to drink. I think it's very tempting to make a like delicious non-alcoholic cocktail that it would just be a little bit better with like a few dashes of Angostura bitters in there. But maybe that's right for some guests, but it's important that we're always making sure that like if we're saying it has no alcohol in it, that we're sticking to that. So that could even mean doing things like using bitters that are glycerin based instead of alcohol based. So that's how I think about no alcohol cocktails or zero proof. For low proof, you generally want to think about the ABV of a glass of wine or below, right? So something that's hitting in the like 12% or below alcohol, and then standard above that.
Wow. Well, that's good to know because I'm always out with different friends, and you kind of want to explain to people, exactly what they're drinking. I love talking to people in the industry like yourself who've really like, risen to a new level. There's so many talented people, but hard work's such a big part of it. And then also education. I mean, do you want to give credit to the Diageo Bar Academy, and do you feel like it's really helped elevate your game?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I want to say I've worked, really hard, but I've also been able to, benefit from a lot of systems of privilege that are not open to everyone that have helped me succeed throughout my career. But there are also so many resources and fantastic people out there that are willing to help you. Diageo Bar Academy obviously is a fantastic, accessible resource because it is exactly that. It's free for anyone to be able to learn. But for me, really, the world class journey was about the people that I met and the people that have continued to help me in my career since then. And, it hasn't been that long, but really making connections with these fantastic industry leaders and getting to know them and even getting feedback from them. So, for example, in the competition at every round, no matter how you did, if you won, if you lost, whatever, you would get really detailed feedback from the judges. And that's the type of thing that's helped me succeed. So that at every round, I could see like, oh, okay, this is what I did wrong. yeah, here's how I'm going to fix it for the next one.
Wow. And are you going on to the international competition?
That has already taken place. It was in Sydney, Australia a
Oh,
few weeks ago. Oh my gosh, about a month ago. It's been a minute now.
wow.
And
So,
it was a fantastic time. It was over 50 bartenders from around the world, one representing each country. I made the top 10, and I feel really great about that. And a fantastic bartender from Norway took it for the world. We're excited for him.
wow. And then was it the same format as the one in the States?
It was pretty similar. There were different challenges. There were actually some really cool challenges that really focused on sustainability, including there was like Johnny Walker scotches are really, really focused on sustainability and creating less waste and wasting less water and moving toward more sustainable packaging. They even have this really cool like paper bottle that we're going to be seeing in the States really soon. But there was a highball competition in the global round that was taking waste ingredients and making them into a delicious cordial that you would put in a Johnny Walker Black Label highball. And for that one, I used plum scrap because my restaurant had like little ugly pieces of fresh plums from a dessert. And I used basil stems and spent coffee grounds, which sounds like a very weird combination, but I swear to you, it was delicious, and ended up making a cordial with that for my highball.
Wow. No, that's a great way to think about cooking. I kind of do that too. If I have onion peels, I feel like I'm going to work it into my cooking. When I'm making something. I was joking with a friend. Uh, I know composting is part of this, but I'll eat an apple and I'll chew it down to the last little seed or the stem, and I'll say, "That's my food waste." But
Yeah, there
I
you
get it.
go.
Stems and seeds and all that is exciting. There's a lot of flavor there too, you know. I mean, you might as well cook with it or make it into an ingredient, right? Nothing gets wasted.
Yeah, when we were talking about shrubs are a great way to use food waste. Maybe you are baking an apple pie for, the holidays coming up here, and you peel all your apples first. Well, you can either throw those peels in the compost, or you can mix them with some champagne vinegar and some sugar and put it in your fridge for 24 hours. And next you'll have a nice like apple skin shrub. It'll get like a beautiful red color and some nice flavor. Put a splash of that in some soda water, and you can add a splash of scotch if you want to or not, but you're going to have something delicious that was kind of came from nothing.
Yeah, and just like about packaging, so that kind of fits into the larger scale where waste really needs to be thought about. What are some of the initiatives that Johnny Walker's doing in terms of packaging?
Yeah, so they are working toward, by 2030, they're going to have net zero carbon output. So, not producing any more carbon than they are reducing, essentially, using 100% renewable energy, and then creating packaging that is mostly recycled and mostly recyclable as well. So they actually have this really fantastic paper bottle that I don't want to be quoted on this, but I believe it's already in circulation in many other countries, but we don't have it here in the U.S. quite yet. Where I think they're working through red tape on that one. But you have essentially a recycled paper bottle, which is less heavy. It's like way lighter in weight, uses less water to produce, and is just like way more sustainable and better for the environment.
Wow, that's great. You're affiliated with some really great brands, and I'm getting thirsty, especially talking about your apple skin shrub. That just sounds just what I want right now, with maybe something fizzy and spritzy with it. Um, oh yeah, is there something that we didn't talk about that you'd like to tell our listeners? Because you're pretty neat. You're very thoughtful, and you just won this great competition.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate it so much. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm grateful for all of these experiences that I'm getting to have this year and all the people that I'm getting to meet. And I would just say, think about, I think there are so many easy, small ways for us to incorporate a little bit more thoughtfulness and a little more sustainability into our bars or restaurants or breweries or whatever it may be. And then also when you're sourcing ingredients, if you're thinking about putting a cocktail on a menu, or even just, setting up your back bar at home, what products are you going to choose? And I think, it's an exciting time where consumers are thinking a little bit more about how their values align with the values of these larger companies. And I keep doing that. If you're excited about sustainability, figure out what the best brands are for it and stock your bar with those brands.
Well, that's great. That's a great way to end it. Well, Jessi, thanks so much for joining me here on Beer Sessions Radio. Big shout out to the Diageo Bar Academy. Thank you to our engineer, Armin Spengen. And I'm Jimmy Carboni. We'll catch you next time on Beer Sessions Radio. All right. See you later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Beer Sessions Radio is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network. Food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.
Hey there, I'm Lee Ullman here with some big news from the National Young Farmers Coalition. We're partnering with Heritage Radio Network on a special season of The Farm Report. It's all about what's happening with the Farm Bill and how it impacts farmers and eaters.
I am growing diversified vegetables on land that's been in our family for 150 years.
And so with the pandemic, gentrification, property values going up, we had to sell the land and we lost it.
Join us as we uncover the untold stories behind this massive piece of legislation that shapes how we grow our food, what we eat, and so much more.
The problems we have had, those are things that come from earlier Farm Bill and USDA policy, right? Like Earl Butts, get big or get out.
It's my responsibility to know not only what I'm eating, but then like how that all came to be, and realize like, wow, like this piece of legislation, all this money, like it's technically something that I support as a taxpayer.
While Congress debates the next Farm Bill, this is not just an invitation to listen. It's a call to action. Be part of the conversation. Subscribe to the Farm Report on Heritage Radio Network, wherever you listen to podcasts.